Valentine's Day had always been hard for Grace. Every year, the city dressed itself in red and pink. Store windows glowed with heart-shaped lights. Couples walked hand in hand down crowded sidewalks. Restaurants were booked weeks in advance, and flower vendors lined every street corner, calling out to passing lovers. But Grace walked alone. She was 28, living in Chicago, working 2 jobs just to survive. During the day, she cleaned offices downtown. At night, she waitressed at a small diner on the south side of the city. Life hadn't been kind to her. Her parents had died in a car accident when she was 19. Since then, she had been raising her younger brother, Marcus, on her own. Medical bills, rent, and school fees swallowed every dollar she earned. Love was something she watched from a distance. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, in standing up when the world turns away, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Drama Way. Stories like this one remind us that compassion can still change everything. On this particular Valentine morning, Grace stood at the bus stop in her thin coat, breath fogging in the cold February air. Her phone buzzed with messages from coworkers complaining about long shifts and difficult customers. She checked her bank app. $27. That was all she had until Friday. She sighed and tucked her phone back into her pocket. Another day. Another fight to survive. Across town, Ethan Carter stared at the city from the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse apartment. At 35, Ethan was everything people admired. Successful tech entrepreneur. Philanthropist. Featured in business magazines. His company had just sold for millions, and Valentine's Day reservations waited downstairs at one of Chicago's finest restaurants. Yet he felt empty. His mother had passed away 3 months earlier after a long battle with cancer. She had been his best friend, his moral compass, the one who taught him that kindness mattered more than wealth. Before she died, she made him promise something. "Don't let success harden your heart," she whispered from her hospital bed. "Always see people. Especially the ones everyone ignores." Since her passing, Ethan had struggled to feel anything other than grief. He canceled his dinner reservation. Instead, he grabbed his coat and headed out. He didn't want luxury today. He wanted purpose. Grace arrived at the diner at 5 p.m., tying on her apron as she clocked in. Valentine decorations hung crookedly on the walls, and soft music played from a small speaker near the kitchen. The diner was busier than usual. Couples filled most of the booths. Some laughed loudly. Others leaned close, whispering sweet words. Roses sat on tables. Chocolates exchanged hands. Grace forced a smile and began taking orders. Halfway through her shift, Marcus called. "Grace," he said softly, "the pharmacy says my inhaler is finished." Her heart dropped. "How much?" she asked. $60. Grace closed her eyes. She didn't have $60. She barely had enough for groceries. "Okay," she said, swallowing hard. "I'll figure something out." She hung up and leaned against the counter, fighting tears. Asthma attacks weren't something to gamble with. She needed that money tonight. That was when Ethan walked in. He wore simple clothes, dark jeans and a jacket, but there was something gentle about the way he moved, how he held the door open for an elderly woman behind him. He chose a quiet booth in the corner. Grace approached with her notepad. "Good evening," she said. "Can I get you something to drink?" Ethan looked up and smiled. "Coffee, please. And whatever you recommend." She nodded and walked away. But Ethan noticed something in her eyes. A heaviness. The kind that doesn't come from tired feet or long hours. The kind that comes from carrying too much alone. Throughout the meal, Ethan observed the diner. He watched Grace rush from table to table, apologizing for delays, refilling cups, smiling even when customers were rude. At one point, he saw her step into the back hallway and wipe her face with her sleeve. He felt his mother's voice echo in his heart. "See people." When Grace returned with his check, Ethan gently stopped her. "Are you okay?" he asked. Grace hesitated. Waitresses weren't supposed to share their problems. But something about his tone felt safe. "My brother needs medicine," she said quietly. "I'm just trying to figure it out." Ethan didn't ask questions. He simply nodded. He paid his bill. Then he added something extra. A lot extra. Grace picked up the receipt and froze. The tip was $300. Her hands began to shake. She hurried back to his table. "Sir, I think there's been a mistake." Ethan smiled softly. "No mistake." Her eyes filled with tears. "This is too much." He shook his head. "Today is Valentine's Day," he said. "And my mother used to say love doesn't always come with flowers. Sometimes it comes as help." Grace broke down. She covered her mouth as tears streamed down her face. "You don't know what this means to me," she whispered. Ethan stood. "I don't need to," he replied. "Just pass it forward when you can." Then he walked out. Grace rushed to the pharmacy after her shift and bought Marcus's inhaler. She also picked up groceries and stopped by a small bakery to buy a tiny cake. That night, Marcus hugged her tighter than he ever had. "You saved me," he said. Grace smiled. "No," she replied. "Someone reminded me that kindness still exists." Weeks later, Grace started volunteering at a community food pantry on her days off. She began helping elderly neighbors carry groceries. She left small notes of encouragement on bus seats. She gave when she could. Because someone once gave to her. 3 months later, Ethan received a letter. It was handwritten. Grace told him about Marcus. About the inhaler. About how his kindness had kept her brother breathing. She also told him about the pantry. And the neighbors. And the notes. She ended the letter with, "Your kindness didn't stop with me. It became a chain." Ethan folded the letter carefully. For the first time since his mother's death, he felt peace. Valentine's Day isn't about roses. It isn't about expensive dinners or perfect couples. Sometimes. It's about a stranger who notices your pain. A moment of compassion. A quiet decision to care. Because real love doesn't always look romantic. Sometimes. It looks human. Please take a second to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Dramaway. Every click helps stories of real kindness reach those who need hope the most. And before we end, tell us in the comments below which country or city you're watching from. Sometimes all it takes is one act of courage to make the whole world believe in kindness again.